The gods of Olympus were immortal, but they were never safe. We think of the Greek gods as untouchable, beings of infinite power who shaped the world and answered to no one. But the ancient sources tell a different story. Every single Olympian, from the king of the heavens to the goddess of love, suffered something. Punishment, humiliation, exile, even dismemberment. These were not distant, detached rulers. They bled, they feared, and some of them screamed. Here are the tragic fates of 8 Olympian gods, as the ancient texts actually describe them. 1. Zeus. Zeus was the king of the gods, ruler of the sky, the one who overthrew the Titans and divided the cosmos among his brothers. He sat on the throne of Olympus, and every god, mortal, and creature in the known world answered to him. There was no higher authority. And yet Zeus lived under a shadow that never lifted. The prophecy was clear. Just as Zeus had overthrown his father Kronos, and Kronos had overthrown his father Ouranos before him, a son of Zeus would one day rise to dethrone him. This was not speculation. It was cosmic pattern. Hesiod records it in the Theogony, and Aeschylus dramatizes the tension in Prometheus Bound, where the chained Titan hints that he alone knows which union will produce the son who destroys Zeus. The threat was specific enough that Zeus swallowed the goddess Metis whole while she was pregnant with Athena, because a prophecy warned that Metis would bear a son greater than his father. Apollodorus confirms this in the Bibliotheca, Book 1. Zeus avoided that particular fate. Athena was born from his head instead, and the dangerous son was never conceived. But the fear never disappeared. In some traditions, the prophecy was redirected toward Thetis, the sea nymph. Zeus desired her, but when he learned that her son would surpass his father, he married her off to a mortal, Peleus. Their child was Achilles. Here is what most people miss. Zeus did not conquer fear by taking the throne. He inherited it. The same terror that consumed Kronos, the terror of being replaced by your own child, followed Zeus into power. The king of the gods ruled the universe, but he could never fully rule the future. 2. Poseidon. Poseidon was the god of the sea, earthquakes, and horses. He was Zeus's brother, equal in age and nearly equal in power. When the 3 sons of Kronos divided the world, Poseidon claimed the oceans. He was feared across every coastline and every ship that dared to sail. But even Poseidon was not above punishment. After a failed rebellion against Zeus, one that Hera had helped orchestrate, Poseidon was sentenced to serve a mortal king. He and Apollo were sent to Troy, forced to labor for King Laomedon. Poseidon built the massive walls of the city. Some versions say Apollo tended the king's cattle. They served for a full year, stripped of their divine privileges, working like slaves. And when the labor was done, Laomedon refused to pay them. Homer references this in the Iliad, Book 21, and Apollodorus recounts it in the Bibliotheca, Book 2. The humiliation was deliberate. Zeus did not merely punish Poseidon, he reduced him. The god who could summon tidal waves and crack the earth open was made to stack stones for a mortal who then cheated him. The detail that lingers is this: the walls Poseidon built for Troy were legendary, nearly impenetrable, and yet during the Trojan War, Poseidon fought on the Greek side, against the very city he had built with his own hands. He spent a decade helping to tear down what he had been forced to create. That is not just punishment. That is irony so precise it feels engineered. 3. Hera. Hera was the queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, women, and family. She was Zeus's wife, and in many ways his equal on Olympus. No god dared to openly disrespect her, except of course the one she was married to. Hera once led a rebellion against Zeus. She conspired with Poseidon and Athena to bind him while he slept. They succeeded briefly. Zeus was chained and helpless, but the Nereid Thetis summoned the 100-handed one, Briareus, who freed him. Homer alludes to this event in the Iliad, Book 1. And Zeus did not forget. As punishment, Zeus hung Hera from the sky. He bound her wrists in golden chains, attached anvils to her ankles, and suspended her in the open air. She hung there, in agony, while the other gods watched. None of them intervened. None of them dared. Apollodorus references this episode, and it appears in various retellings throughout the mythographic tradition. The punishment only ended when Zeus extracted an oath from every Olympian that they would never rebel again. Consider the image. The goddess of marriage, the divine protector of bonds between partners, was publicly tortured by her own husband, and the other gods stood by. The story is rarely taught in full because of how uncomfortable it is, but it is there in the sources, plainly told, without apology. It reveals something the myths often try to dress up in glory. Olympus was not a just court. It was a monarchy, and the king's word was enforced through fear. 4. Apollo. Apollo was the god of music, prophecy, healing, archery, and the sun. He was brilliant, radiant, and arguably the most versatile of all the Olympians. Temples across the Greek world honored him. His oracle at Delphi shaped the course of nations, and Zeus banished him. Twice. The first exile came after Apollo killed the Cyclopes, the divine smiths who had forged Zeus' thunderbolts. Apollo did this in grief and rage, after Zeus struck down his son Asclepius with a thunderbolt for the crime of raising the dead. Euripides touches on this in Alcestis, and Apollodorus recounts it in the Bibliotheca, Book 3. Zeus's initial impulse was to hurl Apollo into Tartarus, but Leto, Apollo's mother, intervened. Instead, Apollo was sentenced to serve a mortal, King Admetus of Thessaly, for 1 year. The second exile came after the rebellion against Zeus, the same one involving Poseidon. Apollo was again sent to serve mortals, this time helping to build the walls of Troy alongside Poseidon, as told in Homer's Iliad, Book 7 and Book 21. In both cases, the pattern is the same. The most luminous god on Olympus, the one associated with reason, order, and light, was repeatedly cast down into the world of mortals and made to serve. What is rarely discussed is how Apollo behaved during his exile. By most accounts, he was a kind and generous servant to Admetus. He used his divine gifts to help the king, even persuading the fates to delay Admetus's death. The god who had every reason to be bitter instead showed grace. That is either extraordinary character or a reflection of how deeply the punishment broke his pride. Perhaps both. If you believe understanding these ancient stories matters, subscribe and hit the bell. It helps YouTube show this to more people who are looking for this kind of content. That said, let's continue. 5. Ares. Ares was the god of war, not the noble, strategic side of conflict that belonged to Athena. Ares represented the raw, bloody, chaotic face of battle. He was feared on the battlefield but despised on Olympus. Homer makes this clear in the Iliad. Even Zeus calls Ares the most hateful of all his children. Despite his ferocity, Ares was humiliated more than once. The most striking episode involves the Alauadae, Otus and Ephialtes, two giant sons of Poseidon who grew at an extraordinary rate. While still young, they declared war on the gods. They stacked mountains on top of each other to reach Olympus, and they captured Ares. They stuffed the god of war into a bronze jar, a pathos, and sealed it shut. He remained trapped for 13 months. Homer mentions this in the Iliad, Book 5, and Apollodorus provides fuller detail in the Bibliotheca, Book 1. Ares was only freed when Hermes learned of his imprisonment and rescued him. By the time the jar was opened, Ares was barely alive, weakened almost to the point of fading. The god of war, the divine embodiment of violence and aggression, was defeated not by another god or a great hero, but by two adolescent giants, and they did not kill him. They contained him. They put him in a jar like something to be stored and forgotten. For over a year, no one on Olympus noticed he was missing, or if they did, no one came. That silence may be the cruelest detail of all. 6. Hephaestus. Hephaestus was the god of the forge, fire, and craftsmanship. He made the weapons of the gods, the armor of heroes, the automatons that guarded divine palaces. Every great artifact in Greek mythology, Achilles' shield, Zeus's thunderbolts, Hermes' winged sandals, came from his hands. He was, by any measure, indispensable, and he was discarded at birth. The most common version, told by Apollodorus in the Bibliotheca, Book 1, says that Hera gave birth to Hephaestus alone, without Zeus, as an act of defiance. But when she saw that the child was lame or deformed, she threw him from Olympus. He fell for an entire day and landed on the island of Lemnos, where the sea nymph Thetis and the Oceanid Eurynome raised him. Homer tells a slightly different version in the Iliad, Book 18, where Hephaestus himself recounts his fall and rescue. There is a competing version in the Iliad, Book 1, where it is Zeus who throws Hephaestus from Olympus, this time for defending Hera during an argument. In this telling, the fall is the cause of his lameness, not the result of it. The sources disagree on which parent threw him and why, but both versions carry the same weight. The most skilled craftsman among the gods was rejected by his own family for his appearance. He fell from heaven. He shattered on impact. And then he spent his entire existence making beautiful things for the gods who had thrown him away. Every weapon he forged, every throne he built, was a gift to the family that had discarded him. That is not just tragedy. That is something far more painful. It is loyalty without recognition. 7. Aphrodite. Aphrodite was the goddess of love, beauty, and desire. She was, by all accounts, the most beautiful being in the cosmos. Kings started wars for her favor. Gods competed for her affection. She moved through the world as if gravity itself bent around her. But Aphrodite's private life was not as charmed as her image. She was married to Hephaestus, the lame, soot-covered god of the forge, a marriage she did not choose. In most traditions, Zeus arranged it. And Aphrodite carried on a long affair with Ares, the god of war. Hephaestus suspected the truth and crafted a plan. He forged a net of golden chains, so fine they were invisible, and draped it over his own marriage bed. When Aphrodite and Ares lay together, the net snapped shut. They were trapped, naked and entangled, unable to move. Homer describes the entire episode in the Odyssey, Book 8, through the song of the bard Demodocus. Hephaestus then summoned the gods to witness. He called them to come and see. And they came. They stood around the bed and laughed. The goddess, whose entire identity rested on beauty, allure, and control of desire, was exposed in the most vulnerable way imaginable. She had no power in that moment, no mystique. She was simply caught. What lingers is that the scene is played for comedy in Homer. The gods joke and snicker, but strip away the humor, and the image is stark. Hephaestus did not confront his wife privately. He made her humiliation public, deliberate, and permanent in the cultural memory. The god who was thrown away found a way to throw someone else down. 8. Dionysus. Dionysus was the god of wine, ecstasy, theater, and ritual madness. He was the only Olympian born of a mortal mother, Semele, a princess of Thebes. His very existence was controversial. He was the outsider, the god who had to fight for his place on Olympus, and his story begins with his own death. Before he was the Dionysus of classical myth, he existed in an earlier form, Zagreus. In the Orphic tradition, a mystical religious movement with its own set of sacred texts, Zagreus was the son of Zeus and Persephone. Zeus intended him to be his heir, but Hera, jealous and furious, sent the Titans to destroy the child. They lured the infant Zagreus with toys, a mirror, a spinning top, a ball. Then they seized him, tore him apart, and devoured his flesh. This account is preserved in fragments attributed to Orphic sources and referenced by later writers including Diodorus Siculus in his Library of History, Book 3, and by Clement of Alexandria and Nonnus in the Dionysiaca. Zeus intervened, too late to prevent the killing, but in time to salvage something. He recovered the child's heart, still beating, and sewed it into his own thigh. From there, Dionysus was reborn. His second birth gave him his epithet, the twice-born god. The part that is often overlooked is the ash. When Zeus destroyed the Titans with his thunderbolts for what they had done, from their ashes, mixed with the consumed divine flesh of Zagreus, humanity was created. In Orphic theology, this means every human being carries within them a fragment of the divine. We are, in this tradition, made partly from a murdered god. Dionysus was torn to pieces so that, according to the Orphics, we could exist at all. 8 gods, 8 fates, none of them escaped. What these stories reveal is something the Greeks understood deeply and rarely looked away from. Power does not protect you. It exposes you. The higher you sit, the more spectacular the fall, and even the throne of heaven comes with chains attached. These gods were not punished despite being divine. They were punished because of it, because divinity in Greek thought was never perfection. It was amplification. Every flaw, every jealousy, every moment of pride was magnified to cosmic proportions. And perhaps that is why these stories have lasted for thousands of years. Not because they are about gods, but because they are about us, about what happens when power meets pride, when love meets betrayal, and when even the mightiest beings in the universe discover that suffering does not ask permission. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know about these ancient stories, share it with someone who needs to see it. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.